The June 1995 edition explodes to life with Psycho Sid front and center in the full-color pinup slot, chosen by readers from Romford to Aberdeen, as the magazine proudly unfurls its table of contents. A buffet of columns, news, reviews, features, and biting opinion that cements Power Slam as the most forthright wrestling publication on the stands. Editor Finley Martin opens from the top with a defiant rebuttal to readers accusing the magazine of excessive negativity. He insists Power Slam calls it as it sees it. If a pay-per-view stinks, they say it. If a wrestler is pushed before they're ready, they expose it. If a promoter insults the audience's intelligence, they hammer it. But to balance the scales, he launches into a rare dose of optimism, praising WWF's surging Monday Night Raw ratings. Diesel's East Coast drawing power, a top tier featuring Brett, Shawn, Diesel, Bam Bam, and Razor at unprecedented quality, and a wave of new signings like Chris Candido, Tamara Sitch, Paul Levesque, Louis Mucciolo, Daryl Peterson, and Kensuke Shinzaki. WCW is applauded for strong pay-per-view numbers, the reinvigoration of its NJPW deal, and the return of the Steiners. USWA's Brian Christopher and PG-13 get their due. Smoky Mountain's Al Snow earns plaudits, and ECW is hailed as red-hot and worthy of everyone's attention. Even Ric Flair's reinstatement in WCW is framed not as a betrayal of retirement vows, but as par for the course in wrestling's cyclical chaos. The news section bursts with shocks. The 1-2-3 Kid's broken neck scare in Omaha, with word he'll recover by summer. Shawn Michaels sidelined from U.S. action, but booked for the June UK tour. Paul Levesque unveiled as Hunter Hearst Helmsley to lukewarm reactions. Louis Spicolli rebranded as Rad Radford with equally flat crowd response. Skip and Sonny introduced as the Body Donnas. Michael Hayes reborn as Doc Hendricks. Jerry Lawler confirmed as permanent Raw announcer, while Missy Hyatt is denied entry. Alundra Blaze's nose job, Bertha Faye's confusing storyline romance with Harvey Whippleman, and Sid reforming ties with Dan Spivey. Disappointment lingers over WrestleMania 11's 1.5 buy rate, undercutting the theory that celebrity involvement guarantees big business. In WCW, the drama centers on Steve Austin walking out on May 6th, furious at his misuse, only to return days later after a meeting with Bischoff, but still an unhappy camper. Ric Flair's reinstatement is confirmed, and he immediately resumes teaming with Arn Anderson. Kamala debuts under Kevin Sullivan. And WCW's Great American Bash card is laid out, with Flair versus Savage, Sting versus Meng, and the Steiners versus the Nasties. Meanwhile, Hogan prepares for July's Bash at the Beach, to be held literally on a California beach. Hulk Hogan's Pastamania restaurant in Minneapolis is announced for June 15th, and Sabu, freshly exiled from ECW, flirts with Bischoff about a cruiserweight contract he doesn't want. Extreme Championship Wrestling dominates headlines with the most violent Cactus Jack versus Terry Funk brawl yet. Bottles and branding irons ablaze. Sandman capturing the title from Shane Douglas after woman's betrayal, and Eddy Guerrero versus Dean Malenko stealing the show with a 30-minute draw. ECW ventures into Florida and succeeds, proving detractors wrong, while setting sights on a massive Scranton Stadium show rumored to feature the first U.S. fire match between Cactus and Funk. Across the Pacific, UWFI's Takada regains his world title from Vader in a brutal KO. NJPW collaborates with North Korea to stage record-breaking shows in Pyongyang before 150,000 and 190,000 spectators, capped by Antonio Inoki punning Ric Flair. NJPW's Wrestling Dontaku delivers Benoit vs. Scorpio, Sabu vs. Kanemoto, Terry Funk's NJPW debut, Ric Flair vs. Hirohase, and Muto dethroning Hashimoto. FMW's Kawasaki Stadium Supercard draws 58,000 despite Tarzan Goto's walkout, with Onita defeating Hayabusa in an emotional, exploding barbed wire cage retirement match. All Japan crowns Misawa the 1995 Carnival winner in Budokan, with Akira Taue rising as breakout star. The Stateside column by Ian Robinson anoints Brian Rhodey, Armstrong as 1995's surprise breakout candidate, comparing his potential trajectory to Razor Ramon in '93 and Diesel in '94. Armstrong, mocked as a faceless squash boy in WCW and Smoky Mountain, is redeemed as Jeff Jarrett's sidekick, and Robinson predicts superstardom. The top 10 announcers list crowns ECW's Joey Styles as number 1, followed by Jim Ross and All Japan's Akira Fukuzawa, with Heenan, Lawler, and Vince McMahon filling out the middle. Tony Schiavone limps in at number 10, Lance Russell at number 9, and Triple A's Morales and Rivera crack the list for their infectious chemistry. In Vid Review, Finn Martin contrasts WWF's Brawl in the Family and WrestleMania 11 tapes with FMW's Swimming Pool Madness. Brawl gets a B, thanks to a classic Bret Hart vs. 1-2-3 Kid Raw match. WrestleMania 11 earns only a C for lack of top-tier wrestling, despite celebrity pomp, while FMW's outrageous exploding barbed wire and swimming pool death matches are rated an A, bloody, wild, and unforgettable. Manor's Matt Musings see stately Wayne Manor spotlight 1995's prime movers. Chris Benoit breaking the too small stigma. La Parka's rise despite his skeleton costume. Vader's resurgence against Hogan. Hakushi's unexpected popularity. Harlem Heat's dominance. Jeff Jarrett's intercontinental reign. Dan Severn and Ken Shamrock's shoot-fighting credibility. Savage proving doubters wrong. Buddy Landell's Smoky Mountain comeback. And even Killer Kyle getting a nod. Manor does it with trademark bile, digs, and absurd humor, turning praise into barbed comedy. The feature section kicks off with Rob Butcher's Good Guys and Bad Guys, a sweeping essay on the babyface versus heel dynamic, tracing its lineage to cowboys and Indians, cops and robbers, Batman versus Joker, Superman versus men. Lex Luthor, through wrestling's history, from early 1900s promoters inventing faces and heels to the 1980s WWF empire of larger-than-life heroes conquering monsters. Butcher argues that in the 1990s, the formula is breaking down as fans reject simplistic roles, and the WWF struggles to adapt its promotional tactics to an audience more interested in shades of gray. Rob Butcher's analysis of the eternal battle between good and evil bleeds directly into the mid-1995 WWF landscape, dissecting the blurred lines between heroes and villains as fans chant for heels and boo babyfaces, leaving McMahon's empire flailing in its attempts to replicate the Superman versus Lex Luthor formula. From there, the magazine pivots hard into the spectacle of violence outside Stamford with You Looking at Me, a raw account of Ken Shamrock and Dan Severn's terrifying dominance at UFC 5. Forget any notion of pro wrestlers being pansies. These men prove themselves as legitimate monsters in a cage where Tyson, Lewis, or Foreman wouldn't dare tread. Then comes a color splash of flamboyance, Sitting Pretty in Japan, documenting Johnny B. Bad's first Japanese tour in April. The sequined, feathered, charismatic WCW showman lands overseas and, despite being a novelty in that market, receives coverage in Power Slam as proof that even mid-card American gimmicks can find a place in the prestige of Japanese rings. But the issue's most poignant question looms in, can ECW survive without Sabu? Aha! The suicidal aerial daredevil who had become the face of ECW's hardcore revolution is gone, walking out on the promotion that made him its most popular boy. Power Slam weighs the stakes. Can Paul Heyman's outfit sustain its aura of chaos and credibility without the man whose table-smashing dives and scar tissue legacy define the company's extreme reputation? The roster is hot, the fan base rabid, but losing Sabu feels like losing ECW's heartbeat. Meanwhile, identity crisis reigns in Crisis. What Crisis? A feature on Stott Levy's constant reinvention. Why does this man change his ring name every 5 minutes? Power Slam digs into the Raven transformation, contrasting his personas from Scotty Flamingo to Johnny Polo to the brooding grunge philosopher in ECW. Levy, forever shedding skin, is framed as wrestling's ultimate chameleon, chasing relevance while audiences struggle to keep up. At the magazine's centerfold, A glossy A3 spread celebrates the Allied powers, Lex Luger and the British Bulldog, fresh off their push as the WWF's would-be World Tag Team Champions. Draped in red, white, and blue symbolism, they are positioned as heirs apparent to a title run, though hindsight knows they'd never capture the belts. Still, Power Slam presents them here as the chosen duo of 1995, the faces of cross-Atlantic muscle, bursting from the magazine in poster glory. The back half of the issue slows into reader voices with the letters section, where fans sound off on subjects as varied as Duke the Dumpster Dross, the aristocratic Blue Bloods, and the timeless debate of who's the greatest. Power Slam, never shy, prints them with snark, rebuttal, or the occasional indulgent nod. The diversity of fan opinion gives the issue its pulse, some pleading for respect for maligned gimmicks, others tearing down sacred cows. Threaded through all of this are the recurring voices that define Power Slam's texture. Stately Wayne Manor's acerbic Matt musings, skewering and praising 1995's prime movers with equal sarcasm. Ian Robinson's stateside coverage spotlighting Brian Armstrong's unlikely roadie to superstar trajectory. And Finn Martin's vid review balancing the dreariness of WrestleMania 11 with the lunatic chaos of FMW tapes. Together, these columns form the DNA of the magazine. Insight laced with humor, cynicism balanced by enthusiasm, a refusal to bow to kayfabe or corporate spin. By the time the issue closes, readers have been taken on a ride through WWF's fractured babyface heel structure, WCW's tumultuous roster politics, ECW's survival crisis, UFC's legitimacy, Japan's super shows, and the letters of fans still demanding their favorites be treated fairly. The Brutal Brothers photos blaze from cover to centerfold. Dave Smith and Wally Yamaguchi provide international snapshots, and the credits remind us that Power Slam is unofficial, independent, and unafraid. And thus issue 11 leaves its readers in June 1995 standing at the crossroads of a wrestling world in flux. WWF struggling to hold on to its formula. WCW leaning on Hogan and Flair while wasting Austin. ECW redefining the sport through blood and fire, and Japan delivering the highest caliber of athletic artistry. In the middle of it all, Power Slam itself emerges as the magazine willing to cut through hype, stand apart from PWI fluff, and tell the fans the truth, even if it means being labeled a doom merchant. Because, as Finn Martin insisted from the top, calling it straight down the line is what Power Slam does, and that's why these pages, month after month, remain essential.